I've got a few paranormal experiences if you'd like to hear about them.
Let's
Sure.
hear it.
Um, so I kind of grew up with like my family being rather superstitious, and in my opinion, for good reason,
Hmm.
about like angels and demons and spirits and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my family is like very, I wouldn't say like very, very religious, but very like in tune with spirituality and whatnot, with like my siblings and whatnot as they grew up like astral projecting and things. Um, which my parents told me stories about that, and so far as I've heard, I've never experienced anything with that specifically. But I did see what I would say are like spirits that have stuck around, starting when I was like probably like 6 or 7 years old. For reference, I'm in my mid 20s.
Okay.
Um, so the first one I had, my grandmother, my great grandmother, she passed away at 103,
Wow.
Wow.
um, in my grandmother's house. So when she passed away, the whole family was there.
Mm.
Um, and since then, uh, the house is no longer in the family, but when I would go back to visit that house, I would always feel strange, like there was someone there that wasn't physically present.
Mm-hmm.
And what kind of confirmed that for me was probably 6 or 8 months after that, after her passing. It was the summer following. I had gone to visit my grandmother, and I was sleeping on the couch in like the living room because it was like a two-bedroom house, so there wasn't a lot of space to sleep. So us kids would sleep on the couch or with one of our parents in the bedroom. But I was sleeping on the couch, and I had woken up in the middle of the night. It was probably 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and for some reason I felt like something was watching me.
Mm.
And my grandmother would talk in her sleep, so I was hearing her talk in her sleep from across the house,
Mm-hmm.
which creeped me out. So me being,
Mm.
6, 7 years old, I'm like, oh, this is weird. I don't like this.
Uh-huh.
I'm listening to someone talk in their sleep and I feel like I'm being watched. So I do that thing where, as a kid, you cover your head with a blanket and you shut your eyes real tight and hope it just everything goes quiet and you fall back asleep.
Yep.
But unfortunately, that didn't happen. So I would like peer out from under the blanket, every few minutes just to see if somebody was there. The talking and the sleep had stopped. And after 2 or 3 times of doing this, um, I pulled the blanket down in front of my eyes, and standing in front of me, like staring down at me, was this black shadowy figure. It was very like skinny, which I can only assume was the spirit of my great grandmother who had not decided to leave the house yet.
Hmm.
And so that was the first experience that I had had, what I had witnessed with my own eyes. Um, and I'd heard experiences from other members in my family where, like the clock on the wall would start chiming if you mentioned my great grandmother by name,
Wow.
um, while certain people were in the house.
Hmm.
Because my uncle, she did not like one of my uncles because he was a like repeat offender for drug addiction and whatnot.
Mm.
So she had a very big keep him out of the house. And so the few times that he came back to visit, when he would mention my great grandmother's name, the clock on the wall would start chiming like
Oh.
very, very rapidly.
Whoa. That's wild.
Um,
That's creepy.
yeah. Probably the second experience I had, um, would be I'd probably 13, 14 at the time when it first started happening. There was, um, and to give you reference for where this was at, I don't know if you know where Powder Springs, Georgia is.
I don't.
Uh,
Where in Georgia is that?
uh, it's probably 35 to 40 minutes southwest of Kennesaw Mountain,
Okay. I'm not sure where that is. Is that like
West Georgia,
West Georgia? Okay.
like 30 minutes west of Atlanta, if
Okay.
that's
Okay.
Yep.
more of a landmark. Um, there was an estate sale in one of the historic houses in that town where one of the final members of the family that owned the house had passed away, and they were selling off a lot of his old stuff. Well, my sister had gone and bought the trunk of the person who owned the house. Now this guy was a soldier from like World War II or Vietnam,
Hmm.
and he still had his like trunk, his footlocker, from when he was in service. And she bought it and she moved it into our house. And when that trunk moved into the house, uh, as I would walk around the house, different spots, um, I would start seeing people or like a person out of the corner of my eye. But when I turned to look, they're never there. So if I was like in my bedroom, I would see someone standing out in the hallway out of the corner of my eye, but I would look there and there'd be nobody there.
Hmm.
If I was walking through the upstairs hallway, I would see someone standing at the bottom of the stairs looking up at me, but they were never there when I turned to look at them.
Hmm.
If I would go into my parents' bedroom, which they had a segmented master bedroom, so there was like a main sitting area, and then there was like a small arch, and then in the second area was their bedroom, was where the bed and stuff was. I would be back by their bed and I would see someone sitting in my father's chair. But if I turned to look at them directly, they were never there. And if I was in their bathroom, I would see someone peering through the doorway, but they were never there. And this only stopped happening once my sister got rid of the trunk because she said she got tired of looking at it because it made her feel uneasy.
Wow. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Um,
I've heard similar stories like that. Actually, with trunks from soldiers, in Georgia, of all places.
Georgia's a special place. I'll say that.
I mean, I think it's got a lot of issues going on. Clearly, because what you know, I think there's a trauma to the land that happened when the March to the Sea happened,
Oh, for sure.
and when they burnt everything down, and there was also like marauders that were taking advantage of that. So like they weren't even associated with Sherman, but they were like, oh, we could just burn down and rob this stuff too, rape and pillage. So like that I think had a profound effect. And like, everywhere's got some weird trauma throughout human history. But Georgia just had like a very weird, horrible. Like I think of Sherman as like an early atom bomb that they just set loose on Georgia with what they did. And like that stuff, your family dates back through Georgia for a while.
I don't know that my family dates back through Georgia because my family is like we're segmented through different parts of history as like migrants. So
Okay.
on one side of my family, we're like from the Caribbean, and the other side of my family is from the UK.
Oh, cool. Okay.
But half of the family that's from the UK is also from the States prior to um it in like the way that there were people already here, and then other half of the family came from the UK once the people were already here, so
Right.
they kind of commingled.
Something I noticed in Georgia that I haven't noticed anywhere. It definitely doesn't happen in New York. And I don't think it happens in California to this degree or like any other place, really. Is I would talk to a lot of families that could trace back. Their family had been in that town since before Georgia was Georgia. And so they had these stories going through their family that made it feel like the Civil War was yesterday, or the Revolution was yesterday, And like there was an old lady in this town. She must have been 90 or something, but she had a memory of a very old man when she was like 4 who was in the Civil War, and they just
Hmm.
happened to cross paths right at this time when he was about to die, and she just got here. So she has like stories she heard. I don't think she remembers them that well, but it's just crazy to think about with Georgia, and I think that also affects that. With all these people who've lived there that long, all the things they went through, because some of the bloodiest battles of the Revolution happened in Georgia as well, that people forget about. Like really wild. Like I think the Mel Gibson's The Patriot, is that the movie?
I
Tim
believe
always
so.
Tim always says he loves that movie, but like I think that's based on some of the battles that happened in Georgia. But yeah, I that's all to say, like Georgia's a very interesting. I love Georgia. And Savannah has its issues as a college town, but I love that little city too.
I'm not sure if you're aware, but Stone Mountain is like almost entirely composed of granite. It's like the
Yes.
largest exposed mass of granite on the entire planet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are some people who say that granite as a rock is like very good at holding on to like certain spiritual energies and whatnot, and I
Mm.
think that may have something to do with it.
I think so. I mean,
Hmm.
people talk about stone tape theory, and the idea of like energy being passed into inanimate objects like stone or even smaller things like parts of a house. Uh, but I think there's something to that. Like I do think like a battlefield has something to it. Now I do always say like we all go to these battlefields and we bring that feeling of the history to it, and sometimes it's hard to distinguish from like the things we know about this place and distinguish that from what might be like traumatized like battlefields. But yeah, man, every time I'm in Georgia, it's a very different feeling in that state.
For sure.
Um,
I've got one more story if you'd
yeah.
like to hear it.
Oh yeah, go for it.
So this was 4 years ago. The grandmother whose house I saw my great grandmother in after she had passed away. Um, my yeah, this is so 4 years ago, 2021. My grandmother was on hospice care because unfortunately she had stage 4 cancer.
Mm,
And I was present to sort of watch the decline of that, unfortunately.
mm, that's terrible.
Um, but uh, I I and my mother and my older brother were the three people that took care of her on a regular basis to make sure she was well and eating and whatnot up until she passed away. So uh, safe to say I was very, very close with my grandmother towards the end.
Mm,
Um, but so I came home from work uh, really, really late because at the time I was working like third shift on the job. So I would go into work at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon and come home at 12. So by the time I was getting home, it was 1 o'clock, 1:30. Um, and I got home and I got ready for bed, and it seemed like as soon as my head hit the pillow, I was like completely knocked out. Well, sort of in the same vein as the last guy, I had like a dream sort of experience that I can only describe as I walked the steps to heaven and
mm.
delivered my grandmother there.
Whoa.
Um, so I put my head down on the pillow, was out, and then I just had this strange like dream, like very very vivid. Like I was just walking down this. It wasn't really anything. It was just like being in a space where everything around me was like pure white. And I was walking and carrying my grandmother in the same way that I would carry her from her bed to the couch so she could watch TV and whatnot,
Mm,
in like a bridal carry sort of fashion.
right.
Um, and so I was walking, and it felt like forever. I mean, it got to the point where my legs started to feel a little bit fatigued,
Mm,
and my arms were growing tired as I carried her on. Um, and eventually I got to this place, and I mean, the only I don't know what it looked like because I don't really remember this part so much. I just remember feeling this strong feeling of just awestruck and like profound beauty that was surrounding me. And she wasn't in my arms anymore. Um and I looked around because I was kind of like, well, where'd she go? And the only thing that I can recall hearing at this time was um she's at peace now. It's not your time. Return home.
hmm.
And then I woke up. And like right as I woke up, my mother was screaming because she'd gone downstairs and found my grandmother deceased.
No way.
Yeah. It
Wow.
was it was a very surreal, like profound religious experience for me.
Wow. Yeah. Horrible, but also strangely beautiful that you had that experience. That is insane. It's weird. I lost my grandma to cancer in 2021 as well. We were also very close. It's a horrible, horrible thing to go through, especially when like you're close and you're taking care of them, which what we were doing as well. Uh, it's horrible, but that is a profound experience.
It certainly kicked my butt in gear and was like, yeah, I need to start reading up on the scriptures and go back to church.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's amazing. Hey, how many do we have a lot of callers lined up? So I wanted to ask a few questions. If
I mean, yeah, we got a
okay,
few,
I just
but
have
I
like I just
mean,
want to ask a few questions. Just
yeah, we got
Sure,
plenty
go
of
ahead.
time.
going back to the beginning. When you say your family had reason to be superstitious, why do you think that is?
Growing up, uh, with my mom's side of the family, like they were always seeing things that couldn't really be explained by like ordinary explanation.
Hmm.
Especially like they moved all around the states. My mom's side did growing up, so she's the youngest of seven.
Okay.
So she's got uh five older brothers and one older sister. So they all grew up in different parts of the country, as well as like a couple of my uncles are from the UK before coming to the United States.
Hmm.
So um, when my oldest uncle on her side was 19, he unfortunately was killed in a car accident.
Mm.
Um, and uh, every night for like 3 or 4 weeks after he passed away, my mother would go and sit in his bedroom and talk to him,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
Hmm.
In the way that my grandmother described as if he was sitting there on the bed next to her.
Mm.
And my grandmother, she would only ever dream in black and white. Well, when he passed away, she started dreaming in color of him talking to my mother.
Well, that's an interesting detail. I never heard that before.
Yeah. Similarly, like my grandmother, the day my uncle passed away, she had a dream in color the night before about him getting into a car accident, which she then found out, and that's when she sort of clicked on like, hey, this is a thing that happens, and
Wow.
I need to take this seriously.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting. And then when you say about your family having experiences with astral projection, what was that about? Like I know what astral
Uh,
projection is, but like was there just you said there was a few people doing that within your family?
yeah, so my I'm the youngest of four myself, and
Hmm.
I've got three older siblings, two older sisters and an older brother. My the pair in the middle, my brother and sister are twins, and when they were younger, my sister did not speak up until she was like 5 or 6, and my brother would speak for her. And the way that they did this was, as they were sleeping in the morning, um, my sister would supposedly tell my brother everything that he needed to tell my parents for the day. And then my brother, while he's projecting, would come and tell my parents that, and then my parents would wake up and be like, "Wait, who was just talking to us?" And they didn't realize that they were projecting until um, my mom got up early one morning because my brother had been getting up at like 6 o'clock in the morning as like a 5 or 6 year old. She got up after he came to talk to my mother. And when she got up and walked across the house, leaving him in the bedroom with my father, she found my brother still sleeping in his bed.
Whoa, that's wild. That is wild. And you haven't had any astral projection experiences,
I haven't had any experiences where I project. I've only had experiences where I see things.
right? And when you saw those things, those entities you were describing, did you ever try interacting with them, or did they interact with you other than being in your like area?
Um, I didn't start experimenting with that until I got older,
Hmm.
and most of those like experiments where I would try and like talk to whatever it was, I never got any luck with it.
What would you try?
I would just try talking to it,
Okay.
like telling it to like be more present or like show itself more clearly so
Hmm.
that I could actually like verify that it was there, but nothing ever happened.
Wow. Wow, man. Well, I really appreciate you calling in and sharing these stories. It was great, great stories, as sad as they are. But I really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Have a great night.
Have a good one.